Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Alhamdulillah, tonight we are able to continue the class after postponement from last week because I was kind of too busy and too tired. Alhamdulillah, today we are able to continue our class, inshallah. So the topic for today's class is research design in quantitative research. So this in your thesis, it will be your chapter number 3. So while we are trying to understand the research design, hopefully it will help you to write your chapter 3 of your thesis if you plan to do the quantitative research. So what is a research design? A research design is very important for our research. So a research design is a plan, structure, and strategy of the research. Investigation here means research. So research design is a plan, structure, and strategy of the research that is conceived or designed to answer research questions or research objectives. So in chapter 1, we write research objectives and research questions. So for example, you have 5 research objectives and 5 research questions written in chapter 1. So how are we going to answer, how the research is going to answer the research questions and achieve the research objectives? So we need to have a plan, yeah, to answer the research questions and to achieve the research objectives. So what is the plan? The plan is the complete scheme or program of the research. So it will start with, in quantitative study, the research plan includes the outline, the outline or the plan of what the researcher will do. From writing the hypothesis. So in research plan, in quantitative research, we have the theoretical framework of the study, right? And then based on the theoretical framework of the study that we design, then we will write the operational definitions of the variables that we include in the theoretical framework of the study. For example, suppose you have 7 variables, or we call constructs in the theoretical framework. Then what we'll do is we have to give the operational definitions. Operational definition means we define each of the constructs or variables that we include in the theoretical framework of the study. And we will not only define the constructs, we will also explain how we are going to measure the constructs, right? For example, one of the constructs is attitude, right? Just for example, attitude. Then we need to define what attitude is. And then how are we going to measure the attitude? Because when we talk about constructs, it is something that is abstract in nature. Abstract means we cannot see. Yeah, the attitude we cannot see. It is abstract. Okay, someone's attitude we cannot see. Right. So we need to define, and then we need to explain how we are going to measure attitudes. So it is something that is not easy to do, yeah? Something that is abstract, and we need to define and we need to explain how we are going to measure. So what we do is we look at the previous studies, yeah. For example, attitude, there are many other studies that have defined attitude, right? And we look at how they define, and usually we just follow their definitions. And if necessary, we might want to redefine, if necessary, for the purpose of our research. And what we do is we define that construct according to the purpose of our research, and we can adapt and adopt the questionnaire items from previous researchers. So for PhD students, I would suggest that you adapt and adopt the questionnaire items from previous researchers. So this is an example of the theoretical framework. So in this study, there are 7 constructs. Yeah? This is just an example. You have your own framework, right? In this framework, there are 7 variables: attitude, subjective norm, perceived, behavioral control, moral obligation, Islamic religiosity, intention, and compliance behavior. So first thing, how are we going to construct the theoretical framework of our study? For PhD thesis, you might consider reviewing the literature review of the previous studies. So, for example, you have discovered several research done on the topic. Yeah. So you might want to look at how they construct their theoretical framework. For example, you take a look at 3 or 4 previous research on the topic. So in this case, the topic is compliance behavior, right? So there are many research or studies that have been done on this topic, right? So different research construct a different theoretical framework. However, you might find that there are some common variables that have been used. For example, in this case, attitude, subjective norm, perceived behavioral control, intention, and compliance behavior. These are the common constructs that have been included by previous studies. And for PhD, you have to be different. Yeah, you have to have the element of novelty. Novelty means that your research framework is somewhat new, and there are new variables that are considered as significant that you introduce so that you can contribute to the knowledge. Yeah, you can give significance contribution to the knowledge in terms of proposing and testing new variables. So like we discussed before, it's a good idea that you have your framework is based on certain underpinning theory. So in this case, in this study, just for example, the underpinning theory for this framework is called the theory of planned behavior. Yeah, for in your case, you might want to consider the suitable underpinning theory to be adapted and adopted when you construct the theoretical framework. So it's not an easy task to do, and I think this is the most crucial part of the thesis, constructing theoretical framework. If your theoretical framework can be justified, right? You are on the right track, yeah? If you cannot form a solid and justified theoretical framework, we are afraid that your thesis will break down. It's like when you want to build a house, right? So the foundation of the house must be strong, otherwise the house might have a risk of, being torn down. So for PhD, you have to go through the process of colloquium 1, and then a proposal defense, and then colloquium 2, and then the mock viva. So it is very important if you do a quantitative study to have a strong, solid, and justified theoretical framework where you can show the underpinning theory that you use, and you can adapt and adopt, and also show that what you are doing is or includes or consists of the new. It includes also the new variables that you introduce so that it could be your contribution. So in this case, the common variables that were used in previous studies are attitude, subjective norm, perceived behavioral control, intention, and compliance behavior. And there are two new variables introduced, yeah? Moral obligation and Islamic religiosity. So in this framework, moral obligation is a new independent variable, and Islamic religiosity is used as a moderating variable. Intention is the mediating variable, and compliance behavior is the dependent variables. So in this framework, there are 4 independent variables, IVs: attitude, subjective norm, perceived behavioral control, and moral obligation. One mediating variable, intention, and dependent variable is compliance behavior, and the moderating variables is Islamic religiosity. So you need to justify why these variables are included. Any question, Bapak Fauzi? Your framework is solid already? Or you have any questions about your framework?
May I have a question?
Sure, go ahead, Bapak Adi.
Yeah, actually, I'm in the middle of confusing now.
Okay. You
So,
can share. You can share. If you have your framework, you can share.
It's not yet because I still confused.
Okay.
So my thesis on master degree is qualitative with FGD, or focus group discussion. So I want to continue that thesis by doing quantitative research. So before I quit confidence, because there is a 107 industrial estate that can be used as a population for the data. But after checking deeply, so it is coming 87 who's active, still active, the industrial estate. But it's only 3 halal industrial estate. So the question is, if I use quantitative with behavior compliance, so the background of the industrial estate is not halal. Majority is not, is just ordinary industrial estate. Then the purpose of the research might not be achieved because the background is different. Because I read some of a PhD thesis, so the data is coming from, for example, from the thesis from Prof. Yusuf, his background is a teacher, Muslim teacher. So the question is whether I still continue to use the data population of the industrial estate, which not all halal industrial estate. If I use the compliance behavior research design.
Okay. So a good question. Number one, I'm just curious why you don't continue with the qualitative research design.
Okay. The question is, if I continue with qualitative, for example, for focus group discussion, so it's quite difficult for me to find the source of for the FGD, because what I did already is, I think this is all already all the members, all the experts that I can get for this FGD. But sometimes I was thinking that what might not be wise for me, because maybe this one can be, if you compare between Malaysia and Indonesia, I'm not mistaken, in Malaysia, the halal parks is already more than 20 halal parks. But I don't know yet whether they use management system running their industrial estate or halal parks. So the question is, if qualitative, if I using FGD again, so it's difficult for me to find the expert in Indonesia.
So your topic at master's level was the use of the what do you call the information system, yeah?
Yes, management system.
Yeah.
Management system.
Yeah, the like the digital management system, yeah.
No, is actually integrated management system. Is
integrated management system, yeah.
Yeah, yes.
So that was the topic of your thesis, the integrated management system in the environment of halal industry.
Yes.
So I think that's a good topic. My question is, why don't you continue with that topic?
Yeah, I want to continue with the topic, but what I want to confirm, because in the master degree I use qualitative, so I want to confirm.
For PhD, you can also use qualitative.
So if I use qualitative, so if I again use the FGD, then it's difficult for me to find the expert.
To find the expert.
Pardon?
To find the experts.
Yes.
It can be done.
Yeah.
It can be done. I mean, you don't have to change, because if, in my opinion, if you continue, then you don't have to start from the beginning. If you change to quantitative, you might want to start all over, and it takes a longer time for you. So in my opinion, you pass your master's, and then you just improved on the thesis by introducing something new, for example, and you can discuss with experts how you can improve the methods that you used. In your master's thesis, you used a focus group, and you can also use, you can also complement the focus group with experts interview, and then you might want to focus on some other locations if necessary. And if you want to do comparative study, I think there is no problem. So it's up to you, but I think I think in your case, because I see that the topic is excellent topic. Yeah, the use of integrated management system. And if you do quantitative, basically, for example, if you use theory of planned behavior or some underpinning theory, you don't we don't the respondents are different. Yeah, if you use for example the theory of planned behavior, the respondents are people who comply, people who comply the with the halal, people who comply with using the halal products. Yeah. So you might want to change your research questions and research objectives. So I'm just saying, for PhD, you don't have to do quantitative study. It's an option. Yeah, you can use quali or quanti. So what I'm saying is, if you pass your masters, that means you're an expert already. So you just improve on that one, and you can discuss with your supervisor at your masters how you can you know improve and extend that research um, to be upgraded to be at PhD level. So I think there shouldn't be any problem. So I would recommend that you just continue.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So here, tonight we just cover the quantitative study. For those who do the quantitative study, yeah, don't don't get the impression that you have to do the quantitative study. It is an option. Yeah? So continue with what you are familiar with, yeah. Because if you change to quantitative, you might want to learn a lot. It'd be a lot of new things to you. So do what you are familiar with, and yeah. Last lectures we talked about the qualitative research, but tonight's topic is on quantitative. Yeah?
Okay, Prof. I will discuss with my supervisor.
Yeah, I think that's the best. Yeah.
Yeah.
So the main
He's
supervisor,
here.
the main supervisor is from Malaysia, is from Unishans, but co-supervisor can be appointed from Indonesia, and you can choose your main supervisor at master's level to be the co-supervisor. Or your supervisor is here?
One of my master supervisor was here.
Okay.
Saiful.
Dr. Saiful is here?
Yeah, he's here. But it's you can it's already.
Yeah, Dr. Saiful.
Sorry for being late,
The
Prof.
question by Bapak Adi Priyatno is he wants to change from qualitative to quantitative, But in my opinion, when you choose a topic, you choose something that you are most familiar with, yeah. And since he did an excellent job writing his master's thesis, I would recommend just continue with the thesis, yeah, where we can improve on that topic. I think it's an interesting topic, yeah.
Yeah, bro, we already discussed about it later. 1 week ago, and actually, it's not about the learning a new things in doing his research. He wants to change the method because as we know that the quantitative method is miserable. We know when it will be end, not like qualitative method. And he also said that he already asked the most prominent person in this topic, so he doesn't know anymore who will be interviewed again. So I think when he changed the method, it doesn't change the topic at all. We can focus on the continuing of the topic into the how to make like a strategic level. And when he used INP, I think it is not so difficult. And if it is difficult, I think he can ask help from other person in Indonesia. Yeah, I think that's my opinion, Prof.
The thing is, if you use quantitative, the respondents of basically the general public, yeah. For example, in this case, in the case of zakat compliance, we don't distribute to experts, just to the general public, yeah. But in the case of integrated management system, you cannot distribute the questionnaires to the public.
Yeah, that's why he want to use analytic network processing, Prof. It is a method that change the qualitative method into quantitative methods. It's like an expert judgment. So only few person will be interviewed, and using the specific questionnaire, the researcher will have some how to say, some opinion how to make a decision.
When you use the quantitative methods, what happens is, number one, the number of respondents, you need to determine the population of the study, the sampling method to be used, yeah, the sampling criteria, the sampling size, and usually it's large numbers. If you have small number of population, yeah, and then you want to use the sampling, so that could be a problem that you will run later on. We will discuss further on that one. Yeah.
Thank you, Prof. Thank you, Doctor.
Most welcome. So any other question? So for example, this framework is basically trying to study the behavior, the behavior of the respondents. So in this case, the behavior of the Muslim secondary school teachers with regards to the payment of zakat. So it doesn't involve any experts here. It's just the respondents. So in quantitative methods, we will later on discuss the population and the sampling and the analysis. So you will get a clearer picture, when we discuss that topic, population and sampling. So if your respondents are experts, usually we recommend the qualitative methods, so that because the advantage of qualitative research is you get a more detailed explanation, a richer data in terms of the information that you can gather. With quantitative, they have to answer what's in the questionnaire items only. They cannot give their own input if they are experts. That's the disadvantage of quantitative research. So whether you want to use a qualitative or quantitative, in my opinion, depends on your research questions and research objective. Okay. So the challenge is to form the theoretical framework of the study. You need to have a strong theoretical framework, and then you need to properly define your population of the study. Who you are going to study, who will constitute the population of your study. For example, in this case, the population of the study consists of all Muslim school teachers. Then we need to have the numbers. Then we will do the sampling. So that one we will discuss later. So based on the framework, a researcher could develop the hypothesis. For example, here, the H1 is hypothesis 1. So for example, the hypothesis could be stated as H1 attitude has a significant and positive influence on the intention to comply with zakat payment among Muslim school teachers in the state of Kedah, for example. So based on the framework, the researcher can develop the hypothesis. So here it's written H1, H2, H3, H4, H5A, H5B, H5C, H5D, and H6. That means this research has 6 hypotheses. Okay, so hypothesis number 2, for example, subjective norm has a positive, subjective norm has a significant and positive influence on intention to comply with zakat payment among school teachers in Kedah, and so on. So based on this framework, the researcher can develop the hypothesis. And when we develop the hypothesis, we should elaborate on how we come up with the hypothesis and why we develop those hypotheses. So there are two things that should be written. Number one is how they come up with the hypothesis. So two ways to develop hypothesis. Number one is based on previous studies. For example, we mentioned that there are several studies, or there are voluminous studies that have examined the influence of attitude on the intention. We mentioned those authors' name and the year. For example, studies by Haji Osman 2016, Height 2008, and others have shown that attitude has a significant and a positive influence on the intention to comply with a certain behavior. So we developed the hypothesis based on the previous studies. And then number two, we say that in the environment of this research, for example, in this case, in the environment of zakat compliance behavior, attitude is expected to have significant influence on the intention. Attitude refers to the attitude of the respondents to have, sorry, let me repeat. Attitude refers to the attitude of the respondents to perform certain behavior, in this case to pay the income zakat. And attitude is significant because people who have or respondents who have positive attitudes is more likely to pay income zakat, and attitude is influenced by the respondents' perception of the impact of that behavior, the impact of paying income zakat. So attitude is included because the respondents is more likely to pay income zakat when he or she expects that the payment of income zakat will have a positive impact on others. In this case, positive impact on the on the asnafs of zakat, the poor, the needy, the people in debt, fi sabilillah, the mu'allaf, and other asnafs. So when the respondent thinks that by paying income zakat it helps the asnafs, he or she is more likely to pay income zakat. So that's how we develop the hypothesis. Therefore, we say this study has the following hypothesis. H1, attitude has a significant and positive influence on the intention to pay income zakat among the respondents. Yeah? For example, in this case, among the school teachers, among the Muslim school teachers. So that's how we develop the hypothesis. Number one, by referring to previous studies who have shown that attitude has a positive influence on the intention. And number two, by justifying, in the case of this research, attitude is expected to have a positive and um, a significant influence on the intention. So one is based on previous studies. In research, we say based on the theory. Yeah, the theory means based on the previous studies. Yeah? And two, based on the expectation. Expectation is based on the researchers' expectation of the influence of attitude on intention in the case of zakat payment. So two ways. One based on the theory, the other one is based on expectation. So that's how we develop the research hypothesis. Any question?
Professor,
Yes.
question for quantitative method. Usually we try to confirm the what theory said about something. So is it possible to elaborate new things using a quantitative method?
Yes, good questions. In quantitative methods, we use the deduction approach. Deduction means we have to have the theory first. Yeah, we have to have the theory first. Then we go out and collect the data, and then we analyze the data, and we will come to a conclusion based on the evidence, whether the data or the evidence support or reject the hypothesis that we developed. However, Dr. Saiful, the constraint of quantitative research is we cannot elaborate in detail, in more detail. For example, attitude. We cannot get a very detailed information, unlike in qualitative, because in qualitative, when we interview or we do the focus group, we can ask the follow-up questions. Yeah, we can ask the follow-up questions. And for example, when you interview, you have certain questions, right? You have the interview schedule. We say the interview schedule or the interview protocol, where we have a set of questions that we want to ask the respondents, and we can follow up. We can follow up. So we cannot do that for quantitative. That is one of the disadvantages of quantitative. So there are some PhD students that they complement the questionnaire with interview, for example. Sometimes they cannot, they don't have the rich information on the reasons why attitude is important, why subjective norm is not significant, for example. So they complement with the qualitative method. So that's why they call it mixed method, yeah? Where they combine quantitative with the qualitative. So that can be done, but we don't really recommend that simply because of the time constraint. Yeah? We want you to finish in 3 years. So if you can do in 3 years, for example, you are very efficient, yeah? Very fast, then you can complete in 3 years, then it's all right to do the mixed method. Otherwise, try to stick with either quantitative or qualitative. Can you give me 5 minutes? Okay, inshallah, I'll be back in 5 minutes.
Okay, bro.
Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Waalaikumsalam.
So I always advise my students to look at the previous studies on a certain topic that you choose. So in order to see the end of the tunnel, it's a good idea if we have, for example, 2 or 3 previous research or previous PhD thesis that have been done on the topic, yeah. Or your PhD thesis is based on the research that you have done previously. So although it's not written in any of the research method textbook, yeah, but based on my experience, I usually advise my students to try to find the previous PhD thesis or previous studies that have been done on the topic. So don't be impressed with the quantitative. Yeah? So there are two methods, quanti and quali. Depends on what you want to do. Usually, from my observation, if the respondents are experts, yeah, the research usually employs the qualitative research, because when your respondents are experts, usually there are not many. That's number one, and the experts can give more information. So we interview them or we do the focus group on them. For quantitative, usually it involves the layman or the general public. Yeah. For example, in this case, these are not the experts. They are just the respondents among the public. Yeah. And we want to, in this case, we want to examine or study their behavior, how they behave. Yeah.
Can I asking?
Sure,
Prof,
go ahead, Bapak Fazli.
Beside the theory, when we use the assume or assumption that to build the framework or hypothesis, when we use that's the assumption for specialists for economics theory. Thank you, Prof.
Yeah, for economic theory, usually when we construct the framework, usually we do the data usually involves a secondary data, right? To construct the theoretical framework is also based on two things: the theory and expectation. Yeah? The theory is based on the previous studies that have been done on the topic. So it's the same procedure. You look at previous research, yeah? Either by your professors or some other researchers or PhD students, yeah? or PhD thesis, yeah? That have been done on the topic. Look at how they developed the framework, what theory that they used, and also expectations. Expectations means our own expectations based on the environment of our study, because the environment of our study or the context of our study might be different from the context of their studies, the context of the previous studies. Yeah? So number one, still based on the theory, and number two, expectations. In economics, there are many theories. Yeah, purchasing power theory, the theory of the monetary theory, and many other theories. Yeah. So usually we base number one on the theory in economics. Number two, based on expectation, where we might want to improve on previous theories by introducing one or two new variables that are considered significant to be included in the theory. And in terms of analysis in economics, there are many analysis. Yeah. For example, the analysis of long-run equilibrium, and then we use the co-integration analysis. In the co-integration, there are two methods. One is Johansson method, and the other one is ADF, augmented Dickey-Fuller method. And the software, the famous statistical package, or the most commonly used statistical package is econometric views, yeah, or e-views. Yeah? And usually it involves secondary data, and you can purchase the data on economics. It's called IFS data, International Financial Statistics data. You can buy online IFS data, International Financial Statistics data, where it gives you all the relevant macroeconomics data for all the countries in the world. It's produced by IMF, International Monetary Fund. You can purchase online. Are you from economic background?
I am in my background is economics for agribusiness, agriculture, Prof.
Okay.
Mm.
Okay. Agricultural economics, yeah. So there are several theories in economics that we can study. I'm not really familiar with agricultural economics, but I'm quite familiar with international economics and industrial economics. So that's what I studied at my master's level, the international economics and the industrial economics.
Thank you, Prof. Thank you.
Most welcome. So if you want your research to be very rich, yeah, you can combine quantitative with qualitative data, if time permits. Yeah. So depends on how fast you work, how efficient you work. It's a very good idea to combine, but I'm just afraid that some people, it might take them a long time to do the quantitative and also the qualitative in one research. So if possible, stick to one method, if possible. Because PhD is not about answering all the questions. PhD is about answering the questions that you set. You have the control to set the research questions. You have the control to set the research objectives. So stick to what you want to answer. So that's why some PhD students, they keep improving, updating the research questions and the research objectives so that it can be achieved. That's all for PhD. It doesn't answer all the questions. It answers the questions that we set, and we have the control. Okay, so let's talk about the data in quantitative research. Data is a systematic record of a particular quantity in quantitative research. Thus, it is the different values of that quantity represented together in a set. So it is a collection of facts and figures for a specific purpose, such as a survey or analysis. So the data can be primary data. It can be secondary data. Primary data is the data that you collect, that we as researchers collect to answer our research objectives and research questions. And also there is a secondary data where the data is collected and published by other parties, for example, by other organizations or by previous researchers. To me, sometimes I'm scared with when my students say I want to use secondary data. I'm worried, not scared. I'm worried because the problem is with secondary data is there are some data that is missing, and it's kind of difficult when it's missing. Of course, there is a way to fill the missing data, but the missing data and the real data are two different things. I have one PhD student who used secondary data, and Alhamdulillah, he passed. Although I was kind of worried because there was some missing data, but he was able to fill the missing data with some kind of techniques. So Alhamdulillah. When arranged in an organized form, it can be called information. The source of data, we have primary data, the data that the researcher collects using questionnaires, interviews, and other methods, and also secondary data. Secondary data is used predominantly in economics, for example. The data is collected by other parties. Some of the data can be found in and published by some organizations, such as in an annual report, in their website, and some data can be purchased. Like data in economics can be purchased. I think it costs about $250. Data on economics, on macroeconomic variables. It's International Financial Statistics, IFS. So it can be purchased. So the good thing about secondary data is you can get the data very fast sometimes, if you can purchase or if you have access to the data. However, the disadvantage of secondary data is if the data is missing, yeah? For example, the data published by the statistics government, the statistics department, yeah. In Malaysia, we have the Department of Statistics of Malaysia, and there are many data published by the Department of Statistics. However, there are some data that are missing. So that's a problem, yeah. Missing data is the common problems with secondary data. So that's why I found that at UNISHAM, most students use primary data. But like I said, the data is something to answer the research questions and to achieve the research objectives, something that we control. So what kind of data that we need depends on how we write our research question and research objectives. Yeah? So there are two types of data. One is qualitative. They represent some characteristics or attributes. Qualitative data depict descriptions that may be observed but cannot be computed or calculated. So in qualitative data, for example, if you use focus group or interview, the data cannot be calculated. It's in the form of words where you record and then you transcribe the data and you analyze the data. It's not in numbers. So the quantitative data can be measured, yeah, and not simply observed. The quantitative data is expressed in numbers. Yeah. So if you use, for example, questionnaire, we have the scale, the Likert scale, 5-point Likert scale, or 6-point Likert scale, or 7-point Likert scale, and then we input into the SPSS or Excel, and all are expressed in numbers. So once you get that, when you get the numbers, yeah, then you have to choose the type of analysis that you want to use. You can use, for example, if you want to study the causality, yeah, the influence of variables on mediating, or the influence of independent variables on dependent variables. So you can choose multiple regression analysis that can be analyzed using SPSS. That is called the first generation analysis. Right now we have the second generation of analysis called structural equation modeling. That can be analyzed using AMOS, SAM, or PLS, SAM. So I would recommend that for PhD we use the second generation analysis, which is structural equation modeling, which is to me more more realistic, yeah, compared to the first generation analysis using a multiple regression analysis. So that one will be discussed in some other forum. Yeah? So what the advantages of second generation to the first generation? That one will be discussed in workshop that we will conduct. We will have a workshop on SPSS and also on PLSM that we plan to conduct after the final exam. So probably in January next year. So so I need your help to advertise. So we will have a workshop on SPSS, and we'll have a workshop on PLS also. Inshallah, in January next year or end of December, after you finish taking your exam, after the final exam. And we will charge a minimum fee. Yeah? For example, for PLS, usually, I don't know, they charge 200 or 300 ringgit. But we plan to charge something like 80 ringgit only. Okay, so hopefully there'll be many participants from Malaysia and also Indonesia. We will do the workshop online. And also workshop on PLSM. Inshallah, we will do in January next year, inshallah. Okay, so these are the two types of data. One is primary data. Primary data are the data that are collected for the first time by the researcher. Primary data are pure because no statistical operations have been performed on them, and they are original. For example, if we choose the survey method using questionnaire, so the data that we input have not been performed before. Secondary data, they are the data that are sourced from some place that has originally collected it. It means that some researchers or investigators have already gathered this kind of the data in the past. So it's available either in published or unpublished form. This information is impure, it's not pure, because other researchers have performed some statistical operations on them. So any question? So data collection methods, there are many data collection methods in quantitative research. One of the common method is survey. Nowadays, we use survey using questionnaire, using online survey, or we call the e-survey. So e-survey can be done using email, or nowadays using WhatsApp also is possible, where the researcher will send the questionnaires using what do you call? Google form, using Google form, and it is sent to the Google form is sent to the respondents in email, or now even in WhatsApp group. Yeah. So there are certain principles that we should follow in order to use the e-survey. Yeah. Number one, introduce with a welcome screen that is motivational, emphasizes ease of responding and provides clear instructions to the respondents. Okay, in the Google form, so they must the researchers must have welcome screen, welcome screen that is motivational, that looks that motivates the respondents to answer, and emphasize the ease of responding. Emphasize that to the respondents that it might take 5 minutes, something like that. That it is easy to answer the questionnaire. Give instructions at the beginning of the questionnaire in the Google form. Provide specific instructions on how to respond to questions and how to submit the questionnaire. Begin with an obvious question. Present questionnaires in a conventional form, which other researchers typically use in other research questionnaires. Limit line length to width of a standard screen so that the respondents can see very clearly. Do not require the respondent to answer a question before moving on to the next. Construct questionnaires so that respondents can scroll from question to question. This can be done in the Google form. Try and ensure that all option choices are visible on one screen. Use graphical symbols or words that give a sense of where the respondent is in the completion process. For example, if you have 12 pages, so you should have in the Google form indicates that, for example, you are now in page number 4, page number 5, and there are 12 pages, for example. Be cautious about using question structures that have known measurement problems. So the questions that you want to ask in the questionnaire must go through the validity and reliability test. So before you construct the questionnaire items, it has to go through the test of face validity, content validity, and pilot study. Yeah, and I would suggest that you don't construct your own questionnaires. Rather, we recommend that you use or you adapt or you adopt questionnaires used by the authorities. The questionnaires can be obtained in the appendix of the research published. So, for example, there are research done by other researchers or research done by PhD students. The questionnaire items are usually at the appendix. You can look at the questionnaire items, and you can adapt and adopt the questionnaire items, and then test for the validity and reliability. And you should also, for PhD, do the pilot test to test whether the questions are reliable or not. How many questions for one construct? There is no magic number. Usually we recommend 8 questionnaire items for each construct, because when you do the validity and reliability test, there might be 1 or 2 questionnaire items that has to be deleted. Because when later on, in the workshop, we will explain how you want to test for the validity and reliability of the questionnaire items, the questions that you include in the questionnaire. So in order to pass the test of validity and reliability, all the questionnaire items must have the high outer loading. So if the items have a low outer loadings, then the items might be deleted. So if you start with less items, for example, if you have only 4 items, and it happens, for example, that the items need to be deleted, then you are left with only 3 items. So the statistical package requires a minimum number of items. So it's better to start with a high number of items, for example, 8. Okay. Any question on the questionnaire? So the next method is interview. So interview is the kind of data collection used by qualitative as well as quantitative research. So in interview, those that we interview should represent the group investigators are attempting to make inferences about. So the respondents of the interview must be those persons that can provide information that will answer the research questions and research objectives. So it's important that we choose the right person for the interview. If we don't have the right respondents, we might not have, he or she might not be able to give us the information needed to answer the research questions and research objectives. So the following are the general guidelines for interviewing. Number 1, at the beginning of the interview, explain what the interview is about and its purpose. Ask simple general questions first to put your subject or your respondents at their ease. Often respondents have concerns about why they have been selected to participate in the study. So researchers should recognize this and explain why the researchers choose them and what the researchers wish to achieve. Number 2, then go to a more in-depth questions. Ask the follow-up questions. And don't ask sensitive questions. Give flags that the interview is coming to an end. You know, we can say, for example, I have only a few more questions. Always end by asking if the respondent would like to add anything. You can also ask the subject or the respondent for suggestions on how to improve. Remember that things happen. Perhaps the respondent is called away. So try and ensure the crucial questions are asked early on. Number two, also remember that the respondent is helping the researcher. So the researcher is an inconvenience, taking up time and intruding their personal life. So be polite, even if the researcher does not like or agree with what they say. Okay, any question on the interview? All right. Next is observation. Observation is a systematic data collection approach. So observation is one of the techniques used in qualitative research.
Prof, izin bertanya, Prof.
Ya, silakan.
Offline, maaf, Prof. In bahasa ya, Prof. Bertanya.
Boleh, boleh.
Tadi dijelaskan, Prof, jika secondary data akan banyak kasus adalah failed atau gagal begitu karena ada error di dalam data. Sedangkan yang kemarin saya presentasikan awal begitu sama Prof itu secondary data. Apakah ada saran untuk riset disertasi saya, Prof, untuk secondary data biar tetap diterima atau harus ada tambahan agar tidak gagal begitu? Terima kasih, Prof.
Okey, jadi Bu Rusida menggunakan secondary data ya.
Ya, Prof.
Okay, the constraint with secondary data is the accessibility, yeah. Meaning some of the data might not be accessible because of confidentiality. Sebahagian daripada data itu kita tak dapat perolehi kerana masalah data tersebut tidak boleh diberi ya. Kemudian masalah satu lagi data, sebahagian pada data adalah missing ya. Sebagai contohnya data yang diterbitkan di Malaysia oleh Jabatan Statistik Malaysia, saya dapati sebahagian pada data itu adalah missing ya. Untuk tahun tertentu data tersebut missing, maksud tidak ada. Itu constraint bila kita guna secondary data. Tetapi ada cara untuk mengisi semula data yang missing. Caranya dipanggil simulation ya. Simulation process. Ada beberapa kaedah untuk kita mendapatkan data yang missing dengan menggunakan kaedah simulation. Kaedah simulation yang paling basic adalah menggunakan OLS lah, Ordinary Least Squares Method. Dan ada beberapa kaedah lain yang lebih canggih lah, menggunakan kaedah autoregressive ataupun moving average ataupun the combination of autoregressive and moving average method. Itu saya tidak ajar dalam kelas inilah, tapi kita kalau perlu kita boleh bantulah. Cuma itulah boleh digunakan secondary data. Cuma pastikan secondary data itu semua lengkap lah apa yang kita nak. Kemudian kemudian satu lagi masalah, ada PhD students daripada universiti lain yang konsult dengan saya, mengatakan result yang didapati hasil daripada multiple regression analysis ada result yang tidak signifikan ya. Jadi bila result itu tidak signifikan ya, agak merisaukan. Uh, Data tidak boleh diubah. That's what the data tells. Tapi dia agak depressed lah. Sebab bila dibuat analisis, didapati hipotesis itu ditolak. Banyak hipotesis yang ditolak. Jadi itu satu lagi membuat pelajar PhD stres lah bila menggunakan data analisis. Jadi saya telah mencadangkan supaya menggunakan different analysis. Masih lagi beberapa hipotesis yang terpaksa di reject. So salah satu caranya ialah dengan menambah observation lah. Misalnya kalau sebelum itu dia ada 30 observation, kena tambah lagi lah tahun yang sebelumnya supaya menjadi lebih banyak observation. Dan kena play around lah. Supaya mendapat result yang dikehendaki. Ada kes pelajar PhD yang depressed ya, sebab hasil daripada data analisis menunjukkan salah satu daripada hipotesis itu di luar jangkaan ya. Kebanyakan kajian lepas menunjukkan hubungan yang positif, tetapi tiba-tiba dia mendapat hubungan yang negatif ya. Jadi data doesn't lie. Jadi apa yang beliau perlu lakukan ialah beliau perlu justify lah kenapa hubungan itu negatif. Dan Tuhan telah membantu beliau apabila beliau melihat kepada kajian lepas, ada juga kajian lepas yang menunjukkan hubungan yang negatif. Jadi cut the story short, pendekkan cerita, beliau luluslah PhD. Tetapi agak stres lah apabila data yang dianalisiskan itu menunjukkan satu penemuan yang tidak dijangka ya. Ataupun hipotesis itu di reject. Jadi tugas yang besar lah untuk seorang PhD student itu untuk justify kenapa itu berlaku ya. Jadi boleh digunakan data secondary. Cuma itulah satu masalah data yang tak boleh diakses. Sebahagian pada data tak boleh diakses lah. Kalau tanya data tentang apa ni perbankan ya, banyak data tentang perbankan yang kita nak tapi mereka tidak akan release ya. Kemudian data yang missing ya, maksudnya sebahagian tahun data itu tidak ada. Untuk tahun lain ada. Ya. Kemudian sometimes data itu limited ya. Misalnya kita perlu data yang, for example, the number of observations kita nak banyak kan. Tetapi sebab ada data yang missing, the number of observations jadi sedikit ya. Bila sedikit, sometimes kita ada problem dengan normality ya. Data tu jadi tidak normal ya. The data tends to be normal if it increases ya. Lagi banyak data tu, the larger the sample size, it tends to be normal ya. Itu dari segi statistik lah. Kalau kita belajar statistik ya, the general rule of thumb is sekurang-kurangnya 30 observation ya. Tetapi sometimes 30 observation pun data tu masih tidak normal ya. So one of the requirement bila kita nak buat certain analysis, we have to assume that the data is normal. So if the data is not normal, kita akan ada masalah. So kalau itulah, kalau kita tidak dapat data yang, kalau sample size is small, the number of observation is small, then kadang-kadang result itu agak ya tidak reliable. Result itu tidak seperti sepatutnya lah. Itu antara cabaran lah. Tapi boleh dilakukan. Cuma pastikan kita dapat data yang banyak lah.
Thank you, Prof.
Ya, saya menjawab soalan tu. Ataupun ada lagi soalan lain?
It means in secondary data will must be consist and continuous, Prof.
That's right. It must be continued. There must not be any missing data.
Example is there gap between before and after, especially in Indonesia, like a crisis in 68 year. There are crises in politics and economy. There are we can find or adjustment from before the crisis and after. Is there, Prof?
Yeah, true. So there's a problem of missing data. So what happens is, in order to have a large data in a large sample in secondary data, what happens is usually people choose the quarterly data. So because if you choose a yearly data, your observation might be, the number of observation might be small. Like I said, at least you need, as a general rule of thumb, at least you need 30 observations. The more, the better. So if you choose annual data, so you might not have many observations. So the researchers usually use quarterly data if it's available. Monthly data, some researchers say that the quarterly data is preferred to monthly because for monthly, the variations might not be large. The variation is not large, small variation. So quarterly is like in the middle between yearly and monthly. So I find that many research that use secondary data employ the quarterly data. So that means for 1 year, they have 4 observations. So if 10 years, they have 40 observations. So if you use yearly, if the time period is 10 years, then you have only 10 observations. If you use quarterly, then you have 40 observations. If you use monthly, then 10 times 12 is 120 observations. So in general, the larger, the better.
In my experience, there are problem with forecasting, analysis forecasting, Prof. So what data is good for the analysis, monthly or quarter or yearly, Prof? There are, I think, we have not missing data for the forecasting analysis, Prof?
The more the better, I think. If you can have the monthly data, it's better. So the important thing when you do the forecasting is, so there are many ways to do the forecasting, right? You can use the Box-Jenkins approach, the ARIMA method approach, auto-regressive methods, yeah. Or some people use multiple regression to analyze, and some people use structural equation modeling also to forecast. So actually, forecasting is kind of difficult to do in a sense that if your model is not good, if your the fitness of the model is not good, then you cannot accurately predict. Yeah. So some people use the predictive power as a as as a measure of the goodness of the model. So if you have a high predictive power, that means your model is good. Or another way to say is, if your model is good, you know, they have high R square, right? High adjusted R square, then you can use the model to predict. Or another way, if the predictive power is good, if R square and F square is high, then it means your model is fit. Yeah. So from my experience of using PLSM, even if your model is good, for example, you have high adjusted R square, when you use it to predict, it is still poor. So R in PLSM, R square is used as the to measure the goodness or the fit of the model. Yeah, adjusted R square. If adjusted R square is high, you know, for example, above 0.6, then we say, okay, the model is fit, yeah, or the model is good. However, when we used to predict using F square is a formula derived from R square, but it takes into account some other factors. So even if adjusted R square is high, sometimes the F square is still low. So those are two different things. So to me, predictive power is usually low, even if the adjusted R square is high. So that's why I say it's kind of difficult to do the forecasting. And in my opinion, the best method to forecast is the Box-Jenkins approach. Yeah, you can look up the Box-Jenkins. There are other ways also. The ARIMA, auto-regressive integrated with moving average methods. So I have left the forecasting method area a long time ago. I used to teach forecasting class. Yeah, I used to teach econometrics class, and I used to teach a forecasting class when I was still very young. So it's been a long time. Now I'm more into research method. Yeah,
Thank you, Prof.
most welcome. So it's been a long time. I remember after I got my master's degree, I was assigned difficult subjects because I graduated from University of Wisconsin in the US, and is considered as the universities that are excellent in quantitative methods. So the dean of the school at that time, he said to me, Mr. Yusuf, you graduated from Wisconsin, yeah? I said, yes, Prof. Okay, because you're from Wisconsin, then you have to teach econometrics, you have to teach mathematical economics, also forecasting methods. So those are very difficult subjects. And also, okay, mathematical economics, econometrics, research method, and also forecasting method. So, but that was a long time ago when I first became lecturer. Okay. Okay, let's continue with observation. So observation is a method used in qualitative research. So observation is a systematic data collection approach where the researchers go to a specific place or specific site to observe the behavior of the people. So it's mainly used in the field of sociology, what else? Anthropology, and other disciplines. In Islamic finance, is rarely used, jarang-jarang guna observation. So in qualitative research, the researcher will get the information, gather the information by going to a certain place or a certain site. For example, if the researcher wants to study the behavior of a certain ethnic group or native group, in Malaysia we have a native people. So if you want to examine their behavior, what they do every day, their activities, what they eat, how they do the hunting, then we have to go to their location and observe what they do. So we can be participant observation, where we participate in all the activities that they do, or non-participant observation, where we just observe without participating in the activities. So observation of a field setting involves prolonged engagement in a location or social situation. So sometimes it involves 4 months, 6 months, 1 year, 2 years to be in the location to observe their behavior, for example, their activities, their experience. It takes a long time. So it's usually done by those people who have lots of time and lots of money. So we have a participant observation. So participant observation is a qualitative research method in which the researcher studies a group by observing the group and participating in the group's activities. In conducting the participant observation, there is a need to be unobtrusive. Means the researcher cannot interrupt the activities. so that the researcher do not influence them to change their behavior. Participant observation means watching the events or situations or activities from inside by taking part in the activities conducted by the respondents. The researcher freely interacts, talking with them, participates in various group activities. So if they go hunting, the researchers will go hunting. If they eat, the researcher also eat with them. So participate to get a more sense on how they feel. Yeah? This is interesting. And the second is non-participant observation, when the researcher observes the group passively from a distance, from far away, without participating in the group activities. So it's known as non-participant observation. The researcher just observes. Yeah? The researcher does not try to influence them. And also, the researcher does not take part in the activities. Okay. Now we go back to the quantitative research. So in quantitative research, when we want to collect the data, first thing we need to do is to define the population of the study. What is a population of the study? Population of the study or research population is generally an extensive collection of individuals or objects that is the main focus of a research. That is the population of the study. Okay, so it is an extensive collection of individuals. That is the main focus of a research. So a research population is a well-defined collection of individuals or entities known to have similar characteristics. So usually the research do not choose all the entities or all the individuals in the population of the study, because it's almost impossible. For example, if the population of the studies consists of, for example, 15 million people or 15 million individuals, it's almost impossible. So what we do is we rely on sampling techniques. If the population is 15 million, then we do not study all the individuals of the 15 million individuals. So we choose only the sample. We use the sampling technique, and there are sampling criteria. There are many sampling technique, and then there is also the criteria for choosing the sample size. So if the population is 15 million, we choose the sample size that relates to the 15 million. So there are ways to choose the sample size. There are criteria of choosing the sample size, and there is also the sampling techniques. that we can choose. So now sampling, yeah. So what is a sampling? What is a sample? A sample is a subset of individuals from larger population. If you have 15 million individuals in the population, so you choose only a sample, yeah, a subset of individuals. Researchers use samples to make inferences about populations. So when we choose samples, we have to choose the proper statistical techniques. So when we get the findings, from the findings, we make inferences about populations. So samples are easier to collect data from because they are practical. Yeah, sample size is small. For example, 400, which is manageable. Yeah? So how we choose the sample size will be discussed later. So samples are easier to collect data from because they are practical, cost-effective, convenient, and manageable. Sampling means selecting the group that you will collect data from in your research. Sampling is a process used in statistical analysis in which a predetermined number of observations are taken from a larger population. Okay, for example, your population is 15 million. What is the sample size? Yeah, the sample size is determined by the criteria that you choose. Yeah, we will talk about that later. The methodology used to sample a larger population depends on the analysis type, including simple random sampling, systematic sampling, or other methods such as cluster sampling and stratified sampling. So there are many types of sampling method that we can choose. So which type is suitable for your research, you have to choose. Yeah, don't choose all. Choose only one of the sampling technique. Any question? Okay. So this is not an easy topic, sampling. So I think we will stop here because if we continue, I think you cannot you cannot absorb anymore. We are going into a more difficult topic, the sampling methods. So we have probability sampling and non-probability sampling. There are basically 4 types of probability sampling. Simple random sampling, cluster sampling, systematic sampling, and stratified sampling. And there is a non-probability sampling, snowball sampling, quota sampling, and other types of non-probability sampling. So there are 2 types, probability and non-probability sampling. And inshallah, we will continue in the next class about sampling. So any questions for today before we end today's lecture?
Prof, boleh tanya untuk
Silakan Dr. Saiful.
conference, Prof?
Ya, silakan.
Ini teman-teman bertanya karena mereka belum mendapatkan supervisor. Apakah nanti untuk artikel submitted di conference itu akan terhitung sebagai apa namanya requirement untuk penyelesaian PhD-nya. Jadi sampai sekarang masih belum pasti siapa yang akan menjadi supervisor. Kira-kira saran dari Prof. Yusuf seperti apa?
Sebenarnya sebahagian besar daripada teman-teman sudah mempunyai supervisor ya. Cumanya siapa supervisor itu belum boleh dirilis selagi belum register ya. Jadi itu peraturan yang kita perlu ikuti ya. Jadi sebagai contoh Dr. Saiful dan Bapak Fauzi sudah ada supervisor lah. Yang lain pun kebanyakannya yang sudah submit hari itu kepada Dr. Tahir sudah ada supervisor, tetapi disebabkan belum register, kita tidak boleh mengeluarkan PPS tidak boleh mengeluarkan surat appointment ya, selagi pelajar itu belum diregister. Itu saja. Jadi sekiranya belum ada supervisor, bagaimana ya? Jadi tidak akan dikira dalam requirement untuk PhD lah. Sebab requirement untuk PhD ialah pertama publish artikel dalam International Reference Journal, satu artikel, dan artikel yang kedua dalam Scopus atau ERA atau MySite. Syaratnya first author mesti pelajar, second author main supervisor, third author co-supervisor. Jadi macam Dr. Saiful, Bapak Fauzi sudah boleh lah. Yang lain tu belum boleh dirilis lagi sebab peraturan UNISYAM pelajar mesti diregister terlebih dahulu sebelum PPS dapat mengeluarkan appointment letter.
Kalau saya Prof sudah keluar atau emang harus mengajukan form supervisor?
Saya rasa Bu Rosida sudah keluar ya. Tapi saya kurang pasti ya. Nanti boleh cek dengan Dr. Tahir. Sekarang Dr. Tahir masih lagi berkabung ya. Berkabung ya. Sebab baru kematian ayahnya 2 hari lepas. Jadi mungkin sedikit masa lagi beliau akan kembali ke bertugas lah. Sekarang masih lagi di kampung. Ya, kerana kematian ayahnya ya. Jadi informasi supervisor itu tidak ada pada saya ya. Nanti bila beliau kembali bertugas saya akan cuba update lah. Jadi sesiapa yang sudah register kita akan mohon pihak PPS untuk mengeluarkan appointment letter.
Ya, baik Prof, terima kasih.
Tapi kalau untuk diberitahu secara informal without the appointment letter boleh saja saya rasa untuk tujuan apa ni dimasukkan nama dalam artikel. Itu saya rasa boleh saja. Nanti saya cuba cek ya. Jadi sesiapa yang belum ada supervisor boleh tulis nama dalam WhatsApp group ya. Nanti saya cuba cek dalam minit mesyuarat yang lalu lah. siapakah supervisor tersebut. Cuma itulah belum boleh di-release ya. Tapi maksudnya secara informal bolehlah ya. Belum lagi formal lah.
Atau mungkin gini Prof, jadi barangkali pelajar yang memang berniat betul untuk mengikuti international conference, kemudian barangkali untuk saat ini para pelajar melakukan istilahnya presentasi Prof. Kemudian kita berharap nanti di 2023 bulan Juni insya Allah kan akan dipublish Prof. Berharap sebelum bulan Juni nanti supervisor sudah keluar. Jadi mungkin bisa dicantumkan gitu Prof. Bagaimana jika demikian Prof?
Jadi cadangan saya, siapa yang belum ada supervisor, tulis nama saya dahulu supaya saya banyak presentation dan artikel. Gurau saja. Jadi yang belum ada tu tulis nama saya dahulu. Kemudian sebenarnya kita akan ada banyak lagi conference, ya, conference yang berbentuk era yang diadakan setiap bulan sebenarnya di Malaysia, boleh join secara online dan harga dia if I'm not mistaken, the presentation fee is about 200 and the publication fee is about, I think about 200 also. So that is for ERA. ERA is a high level. So it's quite cheap. It's quite cheap. Only around 400 to present and to publish. And it's done every month. So we have lots of what is it? We have lots of seminars. My site seminars and ERA seminars, yeah. Conference that we publish your articles in my site and in ERA. However, Scopus conference is very expensive in Malaysia. So even if the price is very high, it doesn't guarantee. I remember 2 years ago, I presented in Scopus publication. I paid more than 2,000, and the paper is not published. When I ask for refund, they don't refund. So that's why I focus more on ERA and Scopus. ERA and my site. Usually we have no problem. Within 2 or 3 months after the presentation, they publish. They publish, and it's cheaper. The ERA conference is 400 something, and the my site is also around 400 to 500. But Scopus is more than 2,000. Sometimes it's almost 3,000. So my recommendation is publish in Scopus, publish in ERA or my site. Maybe later we can have the discussion on how to publish in ERA, and also my site.
If I saw the ERA journal, there are many to sim the index with the Scopus Prof.
Right.
Key 4 or key 5.
It's all right. It's all right.
Okay.
It doesn't matter, key 4 or key 5, as long as it is ERA or Scopus. Yeah, it's true. Some journals are Scopus as well as ERA. So the UNISAM's requirement is 1 international referee journal. It doesn't have to have any index. No index is required. The second is either Scopus or ERA or my site. So it doesn't have to be Scopus. It can be ERA or it can be my site. So my plan is with my students, we publish as many as possible. Yeah, inshallah. And we can share the cost we can share, inshallah.
But at my site, there are low cost, Prof. My site index, there are low cost, alhamdulillah, inshallah.
True, yeah. If low cost, then you can pay. So, yeah, if you don't have any supervisor, you can put my name. Yeah. So there's nothing wrong with that. Boleh, Bapak Adi, Bapak Ali, Bapak Indra, put my name so that Allah will give you a reward. So I'm not really worried about publication because the minimum is, just one, for example, one ERA and one international referee journal. So I'm not too worried about that. We will publish more than that. Yeah. Hopefully we can publish 5 or 6 ERAs, for example. Yeah. And one Scopus, for example. So that is more than what is required. All right. Any other question? So I thank you, everyone, especially Dr. Saiful, because we have more than 73 participants from Indonesia. And from Malaysia, there are still some, we are still writing. We are still in the process of writing. And inshallah, there'll be participants from Malaysia also. We schedule online on 23rd and 24th. Because there are many participants, it might be extended to 25th and 26th and 27th because it's online. So the participants can view their presentation online using the link that will be given in the Telegram. Yeah? In the Telegram. So it will be viewed live also using our Facebook and YouTube. So the event also, it is recording, but on 23rd and 24th, we will make it live. Yeah. So we don't do anything, we just watch because everything is actually pre-recorded. Yeah.
Prof, one question, Prof.
Sure, go ahead.
On the conference. The template, the article template, saying that the affiliation and country. So if one of the authors will be Prof. Yusuf, and I'm not registered yet, which affiliation I write in the paper?
Yeah, good question. Usually, if you want it to be counted, so affiliation is both the author and supervisor is UNISHAMS, University Islam Antarabangsa Sultan Abdul Halim Muazzam Shah, Malaysia. because you are a student of UNISHAM. But if you don't want to be counted, you can put your own institution, university. So number 1. Number 2, co-author, Yusuf Haji Osman. Institution, UNISHAM, Universiti Islam Antarabangsa Sultan Abdul Halim Muazzam Shah. So in order to be counted, for example, Bapak Fauzi, your affiliation is Universiti Islam Antarabangsa Sultan Abdul Halim Muazzam Shah. Not Indonesia.
Yeah, because he's already registered.
Yeah, because it's already registered.
Can I edit the ITB Ahmad Prof?
You want to edit?
Add in it means edit with ITB Ahmad Dahlan my affiliation to university. It can, Prof?
Can. So for example,
Thank you.
how do you write affiliation? For example, you say your name and then you put number 1, yeah? And then number 1, you say ITB Ahmad Dahlan and UNISHAMS. So you put both. Can. In full sentence, yeah? ITB Ahmad Dahlan in full name and UNISHAMS in full name. You can put N. Yes.
Okay, Prof. Thank you.
Good idea. Okay. If there is no further question, that's it, the class for tonight. Alhamdulillah. And thank you very much for your participation and for your attendance. Wallahu ta'ala a'lam. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Waalaikumsalam.
Waalaikumsalam warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Good night, everyone.
Thank you, Prof.